Right, so this is the very first conversation in the Women's School of Metamorphosis, and here we are with Liz Doyle. Here I am with Liz Doyle, abstract artist, writer, poet,
Oh God.
extraordinary woman. And I can't wait to get into this conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a question, and then we're going to just see where that takes us, and we're just going to converse for about half an hour. Liz, do you have a clock? I don't.
I have my Garmin watch, so that's fine. I'll there we go.
Yes.
I'll keep an eye. It says 11:01 now.
Brilliant, great timing. So, okay, so we're going to start by tuning into this question. So everybody else, I just wanted to tune into this question as well. And that is, I've forgotten the exact wording, but it's something along these lines, and that is, what is it to be an artist? And when I was feeling into this question again this morning, another thing popped into my awareness, and that is, what is it to be an artist, especially in these times? These times of what I'm feeling as, to be quite honest, chaos and confusion. And we are trying to hold the center, trying to hold the ground, trying to be grounded and rooted and all of that. So I'm just aware that that is kind of all swirling around out there in the collective, and you know, it is part of my mission and part of the mission of the Women's School of Metamorphosis to address how we, you know, how we can most creatively and deeply serve who we're meant to serve and reach who we're meant to reach in these challenging times. So just wanted to add a bit of context to it, really. So what is it to be an artist?
Well, yeah, it's such a mix of things, and of course it varies enormously between artists. And I've been tempted to say that we're all artists, and people have actually said that to me before. You know, we're all, everybody on the planet, if you like, is an artist. But actually, I don't completely agree with that. I think we all have the potential to be artists, because, and I'm not being up myself about that in any way. I just mean that being an artist is about actually being one and being present and being aware, and I think is enormously to do with some sort of honest vision, like really looking or really hearing or really working or really attaching yourself to what it is that you're making or doing or singing or painting or creating in whatever genre, field that you are an artist. And I think, yes, we do all have the potential, and that potential blossoms the more honest and open and attentive we can be. And you're absolutely right that in these times, these horrific climate change challenging times, as well as you've said before, patriarchal times and difficult times politically and socially, and the huge amount of homelessness and lots and lots of real challenges, seriously impossible challenges. And as an artist, I think for me, I almost feel guilty being an artist, because I can't address those issues through my work. Those issues come into my work, but I cannot at all pretend that I am addressing any of it. I just have my own response to it, or to some of it, and it's really scary, actually. And that fear can block me, and I'm sure it blocks many artists. It's actually, is there any point in laying paint on paper, you know, or on canvas? Is there any point in making beautiful images, or for others beautiful music or dance? And that's a really scary place to be.
Well, thank you for that really rich answer, which I just want to pick up on a few points. I'm aware that there's quite a few threads coming from that, but I just wanted to kind of sum that up and then ask something else.
Yeah.
To move us in a different direction, to change the direction slightly. So if as artists we're being, and yes, I do get you about how the artist, you know, that in a sense we're all able to be creative, and in that sense we are all artists. So if the artist, and by that perhaps we're talking about creatives, if we are a creative being, if we're making something like poetry or dance or art or prose, whatever it is, then we are an artist. So if we are present, if we are aware, if we are honest, and if our work is in alignment with our vision,
Yes. Yes.
if we're doing all of that, and we're also responding to the times rather than, as you say, directly addressing them. I'm wondering, and I see also what you say about the fear coming in and blocking the creative flow. So my next question is really, as an artist, so for you as a visual artist and a writer, for me as a poet, isn't it just enough that we're responding? Isn't that enough? And I wondered what you meant by addressing the issue as being somehow separate from the response, or something different.
Well, I actually don't think it is enough, because the times we're facing are so challenging, you know, with COP26 going on now. And I feel, for me personally, I need to do more than paint. So before COVID, I was involved with Extinction Rebellion locally, but then of course COVID prevented me doing that. I mean, I'm quite vulnerable, so I had to be health-wise, I had to be a bit careful. And anyway, XR wasn't really being active during, certainly last year. And so I feel it isn't enough, but it is in itself important. And what was the second thing you said? Sorry, the second half.
I think you've answered it. I think it was something like the response. So there's all of these issues that
Yeah,
we feel strongly about.
I think art in all its forms is extremely central and important to people's well-being and health and mental state and all that, throughout any challenges. And any of us who are lucky enough to go to concerts or dance or to see paintings or to get to public art spaces, it's enormously uplifting. I mean, I find that I feel much better, if there is such a thing, you know, if I'm involved in somebody else's creative process by watching their creative product or whatever it is. And I think it's enormously important for the health of a nation if that is possible, but it only really touches the surface. It's quite a shallow layer of people who have access to that sort of thing. Right. And also the other thing is that, yes, we all of us can respond to the situation for the planet in any way we can. You know, I love to plant trees where I can, but again, I am incredibly privileged to be able to do that, to have the land to plant trees. But it's not for everybody. You know, there's so much more that needs to be done, and we do our little bit, but I come back to that fear. I get really blocked by it not being enough. It just not being enough to paint and get involved in the arts movement, or get involved in XR, or I don't know, contribute in some sort of charitable way. But it is something for me, and that is an important part of the key of the whole thing. If as many as possible of us can be creative, then those.
Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like there's something coming through which is urgent to say.
Yeah,
I take on board everything you've said about, in a sense, nothing feeling like enough that we can do because everything's so huge. So
yeah,
there's two things there for me. One is that I said to myself a long time ago, and I've been active in my younger days. My work now is to work with creative women.
yes,
I'm a coach, a teacher, a counsellor. That's my work now. I'm doing my work now. My creative work is part of what I do. It's an integral part of what I do. So the bigger thing for me is that, and I know this is big as well, but the sense that I have is once we know what we're really, really here to do, then we just get on and do that.
yeah,
And then we get into the flow of creation. So what the issue is for me with all of that outside stuff is that they're all outside of the flow of creation. They're all what I would love, my big vision is that every single person on the planet, every single being, every single organization, every single institution has creativity at its heart, so that
yes,
government would be completely changed if we did that. So it doesn't even make any sense to say that the cabinet meetings that we have here in the UK should be creative meetings. They should do things differently. It requires a whole radical, oh, what's the word? Complete transformation,
yeah.
metamorphosis of everything. So for me, I feel it strongly that we must do our part in that whole big picture, and our part is to undergo our own metamorphosis. We can't actually do
Absolutely.
any more.
You can't do anything if you're starting from a point of fear and disadvantage and brokenness, or we have individually to be strong and developed and powerful to get anything done. And
Yes,
I'm 65 and I feel as though, actually, although I'm presumably physically deteriorating, I actually feel that I'm more emotionally, spiritually, personally powerful than I've ever been. It's a
yes, I
bizarre,
feel.
it was a bizarre notion, and that's actually, I have to say, a lot to do with being a member of your groups. In the Metamorphosis group, the Vision Circle, and the Coming Home Poetry, they're all vitally important to me. And if I weren't developing myself, my voice, my vision, my inspiration, my way of expressing myself, I wouldn't be able to make a dent on anything. I mean, dent sounds a bit violent, but I feel that I am a much more expressive person now through my own development than I was 20 years ago, which is
Yeah,
bizarre to feel more powerful at 65 than 45.
yes. Now, I just want to say that for me, that sense of being whole is crucial. And
Being
I
whole.
feel I feel like what's happening on a wider level um, is that people are inwardly fragmented. So they are operating only with part of themselves.
Yes.
So what happens with collective trauma, for example, and individual trauma, is that we close off parts of ourselves, and they get sealed in little chambers. And so, I mean, the extreme example of that is narcissism, where the whole personality, more or less, is kind of hidden in this chamber, which is coated over with, layers and layers and layers of protection. And what's really worrying, well, it's not worrying. I don't want people to get really worried about this, but the people who are leading us currently, and I say leading with inverted commas, they're not operating as whole human beings with their whole potential. They're only operating with the bit that says control, 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 control.
Yeah,
And of
terrifying.
course, that's the wound of patriarchy, isn't it? And within that wound, there's all of the other wounds, the sisterhood wound, the mother wound, the deep patriarchal wound itself, you know, the ancestral wounds that we carry. I was
Yes.
a
Yeah.
long time ago now, in my own healing journey, I did a lot of shamanic work, and I was in a ceremony with the amazing Callie White, who I worked with a while ago, and she actually took us back through shamanic journeying and drumming to meet an ancestor. And I honestly will say that it was one of the most powerful experiences I had in that time when I was transforming into who I am now. And I actually met a woman, I'm not quite sure who she was, but I was convinced that I knew her. And there was a woman alone in a cell, and she'd been left there to die. And that was one of my ancestors. So the other part of that, of course, is that women were turning on women and turning each other over. So that if you were classified as a witch, for example, then you were taken away and executed. And
Well,
that
like
was happening
now.
all over the planet. So we're still carrying that.
Yes.
And I was
I
listening to the
just
radio this morning.
think there is
And
really a change afoot. There is a movement of men supporting women. And, you know,
yeah,
that's not going to solve the issue of the world overnight, of course, but the fact that
yeah,
we are encouraging each other now so much more to do our own individual thing and to do our group thing. I mean, that sounds very airy-fairy, but it's a huge change. It's
yes.
not
So
out to push ourselves forward at the expense of other people, and certainly not other women. And I don't just mean in the sort of the Instagram influencer sort of way, because I mean that is a big thing, of course, but in a much more societal, feminist, powerful movement of social change, that we as women are not standing on other women. We are supporting each other. And I
exactly.
think that's a really powerful change in society. I don't know, certainly in the last 10 years, it seems to me, and I'm in Ireland now, and I've been in Ireland for 16 years or something. But I don't know, I sense it in these islands anyway. I don't know if it happens quite so much across the water in the States, but certainly in these islands, it seems to be happening much more, that women in the arts support women in the arts, and women in society support women in society, and women in, I don't know, green movements are supporting each other as well, and not cutting off the men. I don't mean that. I don't mean exclusive. I just mean that we're more inclusive for our own kind.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, so supporting and women, which is
Yeah,
obviously very, very crucial to what we're about in the Women's School of Metamorphosis,
yeah,
because you know it is for women. And the reason that I feel that I want to work with women is partly because I think it was the Dalai Lama who said that Western women will change the world.
yeah,
He's credited with saying that, isn't he?
yes.
He perhaps got that from someone else, I don't know, but yeah, we know that that's true, that we are, as you said before, in a privileged position. You know, we've got enough food, we've got shelter, we've got all of the resources that we need. We're fortunate enough to go out and get our creative materials. You know, we've got everything that we need. We really have.
We have the
And
internet.
we have internet, we're articulate, we can write, we can communicate. we can gather, we can, you know, we've got so much power.
Yes.
So what we do with that, where was I going with that thought? Yes, supporting women. That's why women need to come together and support each other. And for me, supporting needs to be unpacked a little bit. So
Not
what
about
I
giving
mean,
advice or a pat on the back or fixing. It's not about fixing. It's about well, you know more, you have the words for explaining what it is more than me, but on the receiving end, for me, it's been about unconditional positive regard. I know that's a really sort of in phrase, but that's what it is. And unpacking who we are and why and from where and where we want to go in words and actions.
Yes, Jan's just making a comment here, which I want to read out because I think it's quite important to our discussion. She says there are supportive women here, but also competitive and treacherous ones. Now, I just want to pick up on that because, I'm still holding that point about unconditional positive regard, which I'm going to come back to in that idea of fixing. That competitiveness and that treacherousness is the sister wound. Now, what that means is that we've been conditioned and schooled into fearing each other instead of honouring each other. But that begins for me within ourselves. So how can we honestly accept and truly support another woman unless we've done the work of supporting and understanding ourselves first? To me, the two things go hand in hand, and it's a process. Now, these so-called competitive and treacherous ones, Jan, I feel like they are wounded. It's happening all over the internet, and it's one of the things that sometimes makes me want to come off Facebook, is that sometimes I just can't stand the pain of witnessing all of that wounding that's being acted out in various scenarios. It's really quite upsetting to me at times, actually, and I have to kind of pull myself away. But I also recognize that Facebook is an incredible platform, tool, amazing sort of way of connecting with people from all over the world. So it's not, Facebook isn't the problem, it's that wound that I'm certainly about addressing within myself and within the women that I help. Because without that, we can't really understand what not fixing is. Because what happens if you're wounded is you want to project your wound outwards onto other people and then feel better by fixing them. So that's how it works. And sometimes it manifests as resistance as well, as kind of like sealing yourself off and not allowing yourself to take on board new ideas. And then, of course, what that happens then is you get stuck, and you're not quite sure why you're stuck. So it's quite complex. But it's really about that inner work of unconditionally, positively regarding yourself. That's the piece.
And that is so frowned upon, or used to be so frowned upon, unconditionally, positively regarding yourself. It's, you know, as if we as women are not allowed to like ourselves, which is,
well, there's all kinds of words for that.
Men are expected to like themselves.
Yes, absolutely. It's not questioned.
And that is such a bizarre contradiction.
Yeah, and we see that everywhere, don't we?
Yes.
Women being brought down. Just give you a little example. This conversation is going off in some amazingly interesting directions. I'm really loving it. I love Strictly Come Dancing. It's one of my guilty pleasures. And I've been really following that story about Tilly Ramsey and all of the abuse that she's received on social media for being chubby. I know. So that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff that goes on for women is that if you dare to step out and appear as your full magnificent self, somebody will come along and go, oh, but yeah, who do you think you are? And
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we're at it. You're too thin, or you're too fat, or you're too something else, or you're not enough of something. So there is that out there, that lack of that. It's projection again, though, isn't it? It's projection. The people who are calling her chubby probably want to do what she's doing, but they haven't kind of opened up to that aspect of
Yeah,
themselves.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So she, yeah. So that to come back to that unconditional positive regard and the inner work, and not trying to fix people. It's when you feel whole enough in yourself, then you can meet the other with no conditions.
yes. And that takes a lifetime. Well, it can be speeded up. I mean, it can be enormously speeded up by having the help to do it. But I mean, I must have heard those words or similar words in my 30s. And yet 35 years down the line, I'm still looking at all of that. I mean, what do you have to say, Alison, about how early one should or can get into that sort of work?
I don't think there's a time limit. I feel women of all ages are doing the work at the moment. I feel like it's partly an individual journey. There's some amazing comments coming in. Jan says she never felt good enough, but she was. Not pretty enough, not talented enough, but she knew that she was always. So yes, for me too, I'll come back to your question again there in a minute, Liz. If for me too, there was part of me, and there's part of us all actually, there's a part of us all, and it's probably what we call, I feel it's probably what we call the soul. There's something in us, the spiritual part of us that I've connected with over the past 5 or 6 years already knows that we're enough, and we can connect with that. And that's whatever you want to call it, our essence, our soul, our wholeness, our authenticity. There's something that's always there that deeply, deeply knows, but sometimes we get out of touch with it. And part of becoming whole is getting in touch with that part of ourselves, getting in touch with the potential that we came here with. Because remember, and there are women here, Jo, Mary, Jan, Linda, who are doing that work that we're doing with poetry at the moment. Remember in the vision circle when we wrote about our baby selves, what an incredibly powerful exercise that was.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Because didn't we just come into the world already ready and whole?
Yeah.
And then we got this, somebody took this piece away, and then somebody else took that piece away, and here we are trying to bring the pieces back together again.
And intellectually, we all know that we are the same person as that newborn baby, but it's through the power of attention and poetry and somebody who knows how to, I was going to say manipulate, but I don't mean manipulate, use those emotions and words and images and so on to bring it out in ourselves, to become fully alert to that actuality, that I am still that tiny, innocent, early prem baby with all her fresh awareness.
Yeah,
And
that fresh awareness.
And
in the moment. Everybody's trying to be in the moment, but we came here in the moment.
Yeah, amazing exercise that you led us through there, and the poetry in the group, was it only yesterday? So yeah,
time doing funny things. I have no idea if it was yesterday.
Time is so strange.
It was yesterday.
I didn't even know I could write poetry, and then suddenly it all pours out, and then my analytical mind says, oh, well, what is it for, and what am I going to use it for? But as you've just said, 5 minutes ago. It's for my own getting myself into the right spot. It's for my own personal development, which is a thoroughly overused phrase, but it's for getting at me, getting into me, so that I can get that out of me. So all of that it comes out in a poem, which I loved writing and gave me a whole new buzz, but it also will continue to come out in how I work with other people. That way, how I work, live, share, discuss, move the world forward, if you like, in tiny ways. That instance of looking, perceiving, generating new work will help me be a healthier part of this poor sick world.
Yes, and as we do that, we connect with who we need to connect with. So
yeah,
we form
and look for different people.
Here we are, you and I, Liz, here on this Facebook Live today, and we've connected for a reason.
Yes.
And you know, we're both helping each other.
Good.
So there's an interchange, and everybody here who's live, and everybody in the Women's School of Metamorphosis, and then their friends and their friends of friends. So it's really about connection as well, isn't it?
Yes, it's about connection.
It is about our inner work and coming to wholeness, but then we need to connect with other people who are doing the work so that we can amplify the effects of the work. There's loads of comments coming in. I will answer them later, but Linda's saying, I know what you mean, Liz. I've started singing in rhyme around the house with the granddaughter and the cat. Beautiful, amazing.
Well,
yes.
It looks like I don't know who's supposed to call time here, but it's after
You.
half.
I've given that job to you.
Okay, well, it's 11:33 now, so
Oh,
it's been a fantastic interview and so easy to talk to you and listen to you and wind down those alleyways, and yeah, and it's a powerful tool, poetry, and it's a powerful group to be part of, the Women's School of Metamorphosis and the Vision Circle and Coming Home. And I've loved talking to you. So I'm very privileged and grateful to be first up in this new series of Convo-stations. And thank you, Alison, for everything.
Thank you for being the first and being so willing to come into this experiment. I feel enlivened by our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's a buzz.
Yeah, I feel like we need to find as many opportunities of connecting as we can right now.
Yes.
And you know, use your intuition to find out where you need to be as well. What is for you right now, because there's so much out there, isn't there? So much out there that you can get involved with, which is really great.
Yeah.
So just connection, because we can't do this alone. We can't do this alone.
No, we can't.
So thank you for joining us. And yeah, if you're watching on the replay, thank you for joining us as well. Hope you enjoyed this.
Yes.
And we will see you very soon. Hopefully in Coming Home, which starts next week. I know that Liz is really looking forward to that, and I'm really, really excited to be starting that journey with poetry. The words we use are so vital, and how we use them is so vital. So yes, I feel like I could talk with you all day, actually. I feel like,
well, we can do it again. We could each person that you talk to can become a new series over a year.
Wow. Yes. Yeah. Let's feel into that a little while. Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay.
Okay.
Bye for now, everyone. We'll see you soon.